The fire we reported at the old fire hall is still burning out.
Do you sometimes feel confused or lost in the complications and complexities of life? Do you feel drained, listless, or exhausted from the daily burdens and responsibilities? Why not seek our campus ministers on air every Tuesday from 2 to 3 in the afternoon? Listen to our counselors from the Loyola School's Campus Ministry Office as they ground our lives in our faith, in our school's spiritual tradition. Campus Ministers on Air. Be guided, be inspired, be blessed. Listen to our Campus Ministers on Air. Radyo-Katipunan, 87.9 FM. We are now on YouTube. Watch all of our live episodes plus exclusive content in our channel at radyo-katipunan FM. Don't forget to click subscribe and hit the bell to get the latest updates.
Jesuit Music Ministry, your daily dose of inspiration. Follow jescom.ph on Spotify and Jescom Music on YouTube. We are also on iTunes and Deezer.
Radyo-Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo-Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo-Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.
Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atin mista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng pera. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, kawal ni Ignacio, katipunero sugo, todo sa kayod, tulong at tulong. Lipad na Blue Eagle, galing giting at tigil. Blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan.
Let us understand mental health and explore how we can take care of our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Welcome to your weekly slice of mental health tips and tidbits with Pat and B. here on Mind Ed.
Sa'yo sumisilong kapag ang puso ko'y pagod.
Tara na't simulan ng inyong umaga sa mga magagandang refleksyon tungkol sa ating buhay at pananampalataya. Kasama sina Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle ng Manila, Father J. Boy Gonzales at Father Nono Alfonso ng Kapisanan ni Jesus, Father Cali Llamado ng Manila Cathedral at Binibining Risa Singson Kaupeng ng Light of Jesus Community dito sa Kapit Pandasal sa radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM.
Mahina at maliit ka man, may tiwala ang Diyos sa iyo. Ito po si Father Cali mula dito sa Manila Cathedral. Halina po at magkapit pandasal. Siguro ay ikinagulat ng lahat nang malaman nilang kay Maria Magdalena unang nagpakita si Jesus. Bakit sa isang babae, gayong may 12 lalaking apostol? Bakit sa isang tao na may nakaraan, nagkasakit at inalihan ng masamang espiritu, ipinagkatiwala ang mabuting balita at siyang inatasan ni Jesus na ibalita sa mga alagad na muling nabuhay siya? Isa lang ang gustong ipakita sa atin ni Jesus. Kahit mahina ka, kahit maliit ka lang, kahit may nakaraan ka, may tiwala siya sa iyo. Akala natin mga lalaki lang ang apostol. Akala natin ang tinatawag lang ng Diyos ay yung mga banal at may kakayahan. Hindi pala. May babaeng apostol. May hindi sikat na tinatawag. May maliliit na kanyang pinipili. Maliit man ang tingin mo sa sarili mo, tandaan mo, may tiwala ang Diyos sa iyo. Amen.
Radyo, 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 katipunan, radyo, katipunan, radyo, katipunan, radyo, 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 katipunan, radyo, katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atin sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng eskwela. Radyo, radyo, katipunan, radyo, radyo, katipunan, radyo, katipunan, katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, katipunero sugo, todo sa kayod, tunong at tulong. Lipad na Blue Eagle, galing hiding at tigil.
The Jesuit Hour. Get to know the Jesuits. Discover their spirituality, their history, their ministries. The Jesuit Hour. Anything Jesuit, everything Jesuit. The Jesuit Hour.
Good morning mga katipuneros. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Welcome to our show here at radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM, the Ateneo Campus Radio. This is the Jesuit Hour and I'm your host, Father Nono Alfonso SJ. Kumusta po kayo mga katipuneros? Kahit po maulan, tuloy-tuloy ang ating programa mga katipuneros. Sana po nasa mabuti kayong kalagayan, iwas po sa baha. Okay, so today of course is the feast day of Saint Maria Magdalena, and also the start of our novena masses for the feast of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. Kung kayo po nagsimba kanina, sabi ni Father Mario Francisco, who officiated the mass this morning at Radyo Katipunan, sabi niya pareho raw makasalanan yung dalawa. May commonality, Ignatius and Maria Magdalena. My dear friends, before we introduce our profile individual for today, for this month, magdasal muna po tayo. And of course, we begin our novena masses with our prayer from Saint Ignatius of Loyola. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will, all that I have and possess. You have given all to me. To you, O Lord, I return it. All is yours. Dispose of it wholly according to your will. Give me your love and your grace, for this is sufficient to me. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, so and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, so for today, we have as our guest in our profiles, our one-on-one with influencers, prominent individuals, leaders, and social change agents. Wala pong iba kundi ang direktor ng Ignacio de Loyola, the movie. He is a TV and film director, Mr. Paolo D. Pero we will introduce him by our trailer of the Ignacio de Loyola. Yes, ito muna po, just to remember what he did for the entire Society of Jesus. Take it away, Justin.
How many?
12,000, possibly more. Pamplona is lost, Loyola.
I say we fight.
He wants to become a pilgrim. He wants to go to Jerusalem and beg his way there like the holy pilgrims of old.
But he's a Loyola. What will people say?
If you could hear the voice of God, would you want to keep it secret?
You know what this council is capable of. Do you really want to die?
I have faced death before. It does not scare me.
Yes. So that is the product of the imaginations of Mr. Paolo D. Okay, so incidentally, that's why we are guesting him here at the Jesuit Hour, because this year marks the 5th year. So 5th year anniversary po nitong Ignacio de Loyola, which is still going around, especially now in Latin America and through some movie houses, but definitely on TV, television. So please welcome, without further ado, TV and film director, Mr. Paolo D. Good morning, Paolo.
Good morning, Father. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to everyone in the audience. Salamat po for the invitation to come here and speak with you.
It's our honor, Mr. Paolo D. So, of course, the first question is, kumusta ka during this pandemic? How is family life? How is your health? And how is work despite the pandemic?
Just like everyone else, we're surviving, we're coping. Yung sa industriya po namin, they've been very good about finding new ways to work, new ways to use digital technology, much like we're doing now, to try to still continue doing the tasks that they need to do. And then we've gotten into like work from home shoots na, particularly because of COVID regulations. We're not some areas we're not allowed to send. Usually we have a crew of mga 50, 100 people, no? Eh ngayon hanggang 5 or 10 or sometimes 2 lang yung pwedeng pumunta. So we have to monitor and give instructions over Zoom na lang, parang ganun. And still the pressure is on to produce really good product pa rin. So things like I've gotten personally back into 3D animation para some commercials. It's all in the 3D realm na, and little things like that na I think in the future, after we've gotten out of this pandemic, will help us naman make work more efficient for everyone, more easier, more beautiful yung product in many ways. So hopefully it's for the best.
Kumbaga, Paolo, parang this pandemic has forced everyone to cope, to adjust. But for the better, di ba? We are learning to innovate. No, so even in your industry, this is happening. Innovations.
Yes, definitely, and I think that for a global event like this that happens, a big learning has been na we have to really band together and help each other. Yeah. It's that we're definitely, if we knew before that no man is an island, definitely we know that now. And when I've been fortunate enough to have been vaccinated already. Whenever people hear that and say, "Oh, congratulations," I always say, it's not congrats until all of us are vaccinated. All of us are out of here. Kasi it's a group thing. Until we beat it, there's nothing to be happy, super happy about.
There's definitely a spiritual message there, diba? Yeah. No one is saved until everyone gets vaccinated. Okay,
absolutely.
So, Paolo, how did you? Let's start the interview. How did you start your media career or your TV film career? I understand that you graduated from the Ateneo with a different course. So how did that happen?
So it's a combination of things, and I always feel like I always say that I'm a product of all of us, I suppose, of worlds changing and worlds developing. I grew up at a time when it was still in the era of my parents were still thinking, oh, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be one of these big broadly acceptable professions, especially in a Chinese family.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, my parents were also wanting to encourage interests like music and film that like I developed. So the compromise, as many of my generation experienced, was you finish your degree in business or and then after that you try to explore if you can make it as an artist or as a filmmaker or whatever. So I did that. I graduated management engineering from Ateneo. And then after that, but even during that time I was there, my father was already also encouraging me. They would give me a video camera. We'd play around with, trying to make short films dun sa dorms at Ateneo. That was my playground because we had a set. I had a cast of like all my friends in the dorm would be my cast. And we would make little action movies or fake commercials and all these things. And then it was actually, one of my friends, Aldri Lim, who was at the time studying to become a Jesuit. Unfortunately, he
Yeah.
didn't, he didn't proceed with joining the society in the end. But at the time, he showed some of my work to like people like Father Johnny Go, and then they, it was Jescom who gave me my first professional job. So I
Really?
owe yes, absolutely. I owe pretty much all of my professional career to the chance that Jescom and Father Johnny gave me at the very very beginning. I was an
But
editor there. Yeah,
okay. You were in college at the time or after college?
I had finished my first degree. I was going for my economics double major at the time, but also already starting
Wow.
to do
Wow.
editing work. So yun, and then after that, I did I helped edit the documentary on Cardinal Sin. I
Wow.
did graphic design.
Asin at liwanag.
Yes, that one.
Asin at
Yeah.
liwanag.
And I started shooting as well. I did at first just album covers and the book covers for Jescom also, and then later on I started doing music videos and some other docus there, and movie of the week type things or the Christmas special type of things for the collaborations with ABS-CBN.
And then so when did you decide to go commercial to yeah.
At some point, I did a short stint in ABS-CBN, their special projects. Tapos shortly after that, parang a fellow Atenean friend of mine had referred me to one of the producers in one of the production houses that do commercials, and they were looking for new directors to train to get into commercials. And I went in for an interview, and then they asked me to join them for a bit. That was a really wonderful opportunity, again through friends and people who trusted me and so on. It was a nice it was a nice way of getting into the thing. Yeah.
But how did you stack up against, 'di ba, may mga communication majors, 'di ba, sa ABS-CBN, ang dami niyan eh. 'Di ba? So samantalang ikaw management engineering with 'di ba? With a stint at Jescom. So meron bang feeling na parang, nako, I have to prove myself to these people?
Oh, always. I don't think that ever leaves you. Hanggang ngayon, you still have to prove yourself every time. But at the time, yun nga, you when you're especially when you're breaking in, you people look at your reel, and so I keep trying to develop that, doing things on the side, trying to make it better all the time. I guess part of it was also just that I feel like whenever I'm teaching students about filmmaking, I always remind them, as you're getting into the industry, your skills will outpace your actual professional development. Meaning you will already be able to do more things than people already trust you for. They will trust you for things that you already did like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and you're already good enough to do bigger things, but they don't trust you yet. So you just have to keep developing and developing. So parang at the time, I felt like I could already do commercials. It's just that I needed to build that trust among people who would, actually give me the chances to do that. So
Correct.
parang,
But you also took up some studies, right?
Yeah. I went to the US for some, further studies in cinematography, directing, and so on.
Yeah.
And then I did a long apprenticeship with Direct Boy Iniguez, who's a fantastic cinematographer, super lauded in the industry and so on. And that was also one of my first steps into seeing what the commercial set looked like and how people act and think and move. So that was great.
When did you decide that this was it for you? Na ito na yung gagawin ko. Forget about management engineering. And how did your family react? Paano?
What's funny was that kasi yung management engineering degree ko helped me the first few years, especially because most of my clients were, for instance, the P&Gs and the Unilevers of the world, whose marketing people and management people came from degrees like management engineering. So a whole bunch of, I kind of, because of my background, I kind of knew how to translate between those worlds, between art and film, and business, marketing, and so on. So I think that helped me naman din, especially at the beginning. Pero yung reaction ng family ko, I guess it was all a wait and see kind of thing. Pati then me personally, well, how far are you gonna be able to go? And what point do you say, ito na yun? And so parang since things started rolling along naman na people were starting to give me good work projects and so on, I was able to sustain myself. Parang there was no one point that I said, oh, ito na yan, ito na yan. It just sort of kept going and building, and at some point I look back and I go, oh wait, I've been a director for 10 years. You just
But
stumbled into it.
But I guess you certainly found joy in what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
Kaya parang ano siya, 'di ba, yung sinasabi ni Father Ferriols na nilundag mo na lang because your heart was in it anyway.
Yes. And I would like to think always that it's a common notion, but still amazes me, the thought that somehow God is guiding you and trying to bring you to a place where you can do the most good, I think. And sometimes you listen intently and he speaks clearly. Sometimes he speaks through events. Sometimes he speaks through just people who bring you opportunities like that. And I look back and I see some things happened that I thought at the time would be a hurdle or a doubt or a back step, but really that helped me get into my next phase. So parang I just sometimes you just have to trust.
Yeah, yan yung dahilan kung bakit ka namin kinuha eh. You are really very spiritual. So tell us about that time when Jescom offered you to do Ignacio de Loyola.
So I'm remembering, this is reminiscing time now, Father.
Yeah.
You guys reached out to me through inquiring about there's a thought to put up to make a movie about Saint Ignatius, and I was particularly excited because I being brought up in the Jesuit tradition. I studied in Sacred Heart School in Cebu, which is now Ateneo de Cebu, and then of course Ateneo here in Manila. It was a story and a journey of faith that we had grown up with, and it was something that I had internalized a lot, and it was something also that as you grow up, you find that the world's not as simple as, oh, you get hit by a cannonball. As you're recovering, you suddenly you read a book and then suddenly you're converted. You grew up and you find out it's not that simple. So I was interested in telling that story of what is the adult version of that, the storybook, the child storybook version of Ignacio. We know already. What would it be like to tell the adult version of that in many ways, which is more complex, not as neat, and very, very intricate in detail. So we had to pick a lot of, we had to winnow down what moments to talk about. And so through many, many meetings and drafts, we figured out that these were the moments that we wanted to show and talk about, and ending in his leaving Spain. It's really the conversion and then going for him to go to Paris and so on.
Before we continue with the movie details, Paolo, what about the thought of this was your first full-length film? Wasn't that daunting for you? Or kasi may element daw, sabi ni Pauline, your kasama natin, si Pauline, si Ernestina, if not for our naivete, di ba? Diba? We were fearless in doing this film.
It's that thought is one of the things that I always say. How fiction, life mirrors fiction and fiction mirrors life, and how Ignatius's story itself was mirrored in our journey of trying to make the film. So on the one hand, like I mentioned earlier, you feel like naman din in your professional development as a filmmaker that you will be already ready to do
Ready.
things, right?
Yeah.
So I felt personally that I was ready to take on a feature length film. I had been ready for several years, many years actually,
Mhm.
and I was very confident that somehow we would get through and we would produce something, very decent, watchable, very nice. Would speak. I think what most important to me was that it speaks personally to the audience, and so there is that. On the other hand, yes, it was a bit of course, naivete and not having done this before and not knowing how hard it would get,
Mhm.
and how difficult it would be to balance so many different competing elements of, of course, budget, of course, time, of course, what different stakeholders want from the project. If we had, it's that nga eh, na if we had known how hard it would be, probably we would just pack up and go home on the
Correct.
first day, diba? Pero I guess what gave me a lot of confidence and strength was the fact that the people around us were working so hard, and I wanted to honor that and say, no, we will not give up on this. We will not go home without a film. We have to go home with a film. And with the support of you, Father, and everyone in the society, we were like, we can't let them down. We have to produce something good for them, So that kept us going.
One of the reasons, Paolo, why we offered the film to you is because of your Magis Award. We can you tell us about that and our audience?
Oh my!
Because that told us that you already know a lot about Saint Ignatius of Loyola, but tell us about that award.
Okay. So in Sacred Heart School, Ateneo de Cebu, they have this award they call the Magis Award, which, if I remember correctly, they would give it to someone who would exemplify now the idea of Magis, which means always trying to do more, trying to better yourself, trying to reach for sometimes the unreachable, but never giving up that whole idea. And so I suppose because in high school it was a lot of fun for me, so it wasn't a struggle at all. But we would do a lot of these other extracurricular activities with choir and all these creative things, with scouting and all these other things that I suppose I'm grateful for them thinking this way, that they said, hey, this is the kind of Magis of trying to do more than just the bare minimum, or trying to do more than what is required. They suppose they thought it was worth recognizing that, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah. And then after we did the film, we showed it in Cebu, and then they gave me a second Magis Award.
Wow!
From the same school. So I was like, okay, okay, thank you. That's very, very honored.
Kasi merong di ba? Merong maraming awards na binibigay ang schools, valedictorian, salutatorian, di ba? Dean's Lister. But I guess this is from the standpoint of Ignatius of Loyola and the Jesuits. The Magis Award would trump all of that anytime, di ba? Kasi, di ba? Being like Ignatius. Anyway, but for you, again, before we continue with the details of the movie, for you, what was at that age? What was the compelling, kumbaga, character or attribute of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, aside from the Magis, diba? What struck you?
I think that I like that he was not a perfect person from the start. I think that built in, even in the simplest form of the story, they always say that he was a soldier. He was kind of the world in many ways. He was given to some vices, of course, as some soldiers will be at the time. And they say that it was a cataclysmic event of him being hit by the cannonball that first ignited his thought of, well, is this really what I want to do? is this quest for glory and fame and women and riches? Is this really what I want to do with my life, or is there something greater? And I really like that because it's very typical of human experience nga. As a kid, I would see all these other stories also of superheroes and even real life heroes and people who are notable, and you see their biographies, and always there is a moment of questioning na, what do I want to do? Am I being called to something greater? And I really connected with that because I felt like, perhaps it's good if we all would have that question in our heads once in a while, which is why retreats and recollections and all these things are really really useful, because it helps calibrate where we are. No, what am I doing right now? Am I moving forward in what I want to do? So I felt that was really striking at the time.
Okay. Let's talk about the movie then. How did you prepare for the film? I understand that you did a lot of research that even amazed some of our old Jesuits. Sabi nila, talaga sabi nila sa akin, I've not read about that. But how did you prepare for, because you also wrote the script, of course. So how did you prepare?
So I really, we read a whole bunch of biographies and so together as a team, and from different perspectives. There were some biographies that dealt with Ignatius's mental health, for instance, trying to analyze him as perhaps as someone who was a victim of a mental health crisis at the time. Let's say because of it's trauma. Being hit by a cannonball, of course, and perhaps he had gone through a major depression. That was interesting to me, and how he would, and having been close to some people who had gone through that, and knowing how deep that trauma goes and how deep that struggle to climb out of that hole, how much effort and heroism that actually requires, even in real life. I felt that would be something that he had gone through. So we would get a lot of these sources, books, conversations with people, Jesuits, movies, the earlier movies also, and we brought together the pieces that we felt would put together a story that, one, again, attacks the story in a way that hasn't been done before. Tries to come at it from, I also, of course, as a screenwriter and so on, I bring in my own experience and my own, you could say, biases or my own stories that I want to tell, and weave it all together into something that would be relevant to an audience, I suppose. So yeah, a lot of research.
Yeah.
Together.
98% of the movie was shot on location in Spain. How was that like, filming in, of course, the very land of Ignatius of Loyola, where he trekked? You filmed in the Loyola Castle as well. So how did that make you feel? How did that feel, rather?
We were very lucky to be able to get the support of the Jesuits around the world, and in particular at that moment, the Jesuits there who were the caretakers of the sanctuary of Loyola. And it was just amazing to be there, to tread the same floor, look at touch the same walls that, we were there in the room that Ignatius was born. That sent chills down my spine when we were there. And I think that I'm now a firm believer in a place being able to speak to you. Because when we were developing the script, we had gotten through a few drafts. But that then came the time to go there and start doing an ocular, looking for locations, looking for actors. And that first trip there, way before, couple of years before we actually shot, was really transformative because, just being able to, again, being there, smelling the air there, seeing the weather there. At first, when you think of me personally, when you think of Spain, I had never been before. You hear the stories, stories of Don Quixote, and you think wide open spaces, all sunlit, and but Ignatius was living in Basque Country, which is mountainous and hilly and very rainy, mostly cold. Completely different idea, for instance, of my first conception of him, of Ignatius, convalescing in his castle. I thought it was hot, sticky, muggy, and he's bored, much as I grew up when I would be in the summers growing up. But having gone there, it's a different kind of loneliness. It's cold, it's damp. The places, the castles, we mapped out where the castles of Ignatius and his mother-in-law, I mean his mother, that family, and all the other families, they were very far apart. So it would be rather rare that people would come and visit you. So it was lonely, it was cold, it was probably depressing. Those were the things that worked themselves into the story. So I was very grateful.
But did you feel like Ignatius was present?
Yes.
Di ba? Parang
Absolutely.
helping you
Yes.
finish, complete the film.
Yes.
Did you feel that?
The joke, and not even a joke, it was a real notion on set that we had an extra invisible producer on the film, and Saint Ignatius was making his presence felt almost at every step of the way, both through like things that we couldn't control, like somehow the film was shaped by opportunities that either presented themselves or were taken away, locations that would not be available, but then a better one would show up that was even more connected to his story, and just simply because it was the land of Ignatius,
and
he's their saint. When people heard that we were doing a film about Ignatius there, they would fall over themselves, wanting to help us.
Wow.
So they would give us locations, they would give us warehouses that they were, I have a warehouse, put your stuff over here.
Wow.
We need sheep for a scene. Oh, I know, my brother's a shepherd, we'll bring his sheep over. My sister-in-law is a baker who can bake the bread that was the real bread from that era. So all these wonderful events that we feel was Ignatius kind of showing off and saying, hey, you're on my home court. I will give you all the resources.
Galing, naninindig yung balahibo ko. And including si Andreas, Paolo, di ba? I heard this story about Andreas when he was a little boy. The mother of Andreas brought him to the Loyola Castle yata, or some other church, and then there was the stampita of Ignatius of Loyola, and she gave it to Andreas, di ba? Parang of course, sina Andreas medyo they're not that devout, etc. But the mother gave it to him. I heard that story.
Yeah.
So yung mga ganong miracles, di ba? While you were, di ba, in this film project. Okay.
Yeah, miracles big and small.
Yeah. But how about the challenges that you faced, like working with an entirely Spanish cast? Diba? Diba ano yun? Like anyone in your crew who from the Philippines who spoke Spanish? Do you speak Spanish?
No, not at all. Not at all. My wife Kathy understands it because her part of her family is from from Spain, but me zero. So parang it was of course a challenge. But at the same time, we were a colony of Spain. we're familiar with the culture in many ways, but at the same time, it was surprising when we got there. For instance, a simple a thing as meal times, we had to negotiate because Spanish meal times are, you have breakfast early in the morning, you don't have lunch until like 3 p.m. Pinoy, mag 11:30 na, 11:45, wala pa yung pagkain, iinit na yung ulo mo. So, little compromises had to be made. Now we formalized the 11 o'clock sandwich had to be served just to keep everyone going. That was part of their arrangement as well, but we had to make it a hefty sandwich for the Pinoy crew. Otherwise, they would starve before 3 p.m. Little things like that, and we had to really bridge communication gaps. Like for instance, we realized it's only when you go to a different culture you realize your own culture. It was amplified that we Filipinos, when we're faced with a problem, we laugh. Not to laugh it off, but our first reaction is to kind of laugh and oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And that kind of actually some Spanish members of our crew kind of felt offended when we faced a certain problem and we laughed. And they were like, "Why are you laughing? This is a serious thing that's going on." And we had to explain to them that, well, this is how we diffuse tension and so on, and we have to deal little things like that, which made it interesting. Helped our muscles of trying to reach out and understand other people, communicate better. That helped us in the end, and they also had to do the same thing.
And eventually, you became friends. Even now,
Yeah.
Diba?
Yes.
You're in contact with Andreas and
Yes.
the rest of the crew.
Yes. That's a lifelong thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But to shoot in another country with, diba, strange rules. I understand, diba, they're very strict when it comes to, diba, rules like
Yes.
lunch break, diba?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you survived it.
Yeah, I about the just as an example of that. The lunch break is very, very like once you call lunch, the crew is entitled to an hour break that includes a little bit of siesta already. Do what you want with that. That time is yours. 1 hour, and in fact the time for the hour doesn't start until the last crew member is able to get his meal and sit down. Because that last member needs that 1 hour. He's entitled to that 1 hour. And I was explaining to our side of the team, the history of Europe, right? The history of Spain, France, and so on, that they tried work centuries of trying to work for these workers' rights. Of the entitlements that they feel like as civilized people they need. So, and we're at an earlier stage of that, maybe where we haven't really defined that as strongly. We're making good strides, but moving forward, things like working hours here, and that's really funny because it took a pandemic for us to recognize working hours here in the film industry. And so now people are seeing that a lot of great work can be done within decent working hours and not having to do 24-hour turn or all these things. And so so hopefully I don't know what will happen once we get out of this pandemic, if we'll regress back to the old ways of doing 24-hour shoots, which is really horrible on the health of everyone, or are we going to find some happy medium na, hey, let's do things healthily, let's not risk the the well-being of everyone anymore, because
Paolo, I have received questions from several Jesuits to ask you about favorite scenes, their favorite scenes in the film. For instance, one Jesuit was so amazed at the 3 times that you were able to explain the Loyola symbol. Sabi, diba, there were 3 scenes from the movie trying to explain the family logo, family symbol. How did you do that? Saan ang galing yun? Kahit kami parang, wow.
So I liked I like these little instances of symbols and myth making and so on, because essentially, right, in many ways, the story of Ignatius has been passed down through centuries to us.
Mhm.
Many of the elements of that have become myth in a way. Na parang we've encoded it in a way that has meaning, that can give you more than give more to the audience than just the original story itself. So I wanted to examine that. Even as a child, I would draw the Sacred Heart version or the Ateneo de Cebu version of the seal with the lions and so on. And they kept on repeating that year after year about the story of how it was a symbol of the Loyola family's generosity, that even the wolves could eat because they would. And then I found it interesting to use that later on in the movie, where Ignatius' older brother explains that actually there is a hidden meaning there, that if you don't feed, the Loyola family had a responsibility to its vassals and so on, the people who relied on the family. And if you're not able to provide for them, oh, good luck to you. They're gonna come at you like wolves. It was this whole feudal system back then. And then later on, it was Ignatius who put Inigo himself who put the two together and said, "Hey, this is a question of balance, and we need both sides of. In many instances, in many situations, we need to hear both sides of things. We need both kinds of personalities in any organization." And to balance each other out, because too much of one side, too much of the other side, it's just.
And that was beautiful, diba? Ignatius was charismatic. Sino na nga pangalan ng kanyang kontrabida? Sila naman institutional, diba?
Yes, yes.
So anyway, the next one, hands down, the favorite scene of moviegoers, and they would give us this feedback. Sige nga, hulaan mo nga kung alin.
It's probably the
most moving.
I'm trying to find the right word.
The most moving for them.
Yeah, the chair, I think.
Yes.
Everyone keeps saying it's the chair.
Yes. Siguro, just to describe it to our audience, so Ignatius, after his initial conversion, his friends tried to talk him out of it and brought him to a nightclub, something like that, where he used to go. And then he had an encounter with a beautiful prostitute, but instead of making love with her, with his renewed or rediscover of his faith, he explained to him what life should be about, the purpose of this lady, in this life. So, but that was the most beautiful scene for many, most moving, touching scene for many, many moviegoers. How did you think about that? Imagine that.
Father, I did not. That came directly as an exercise during one of the retreats run by back in school. If I recall correctly, it was Father Julian Hernando who gave that exercise to us, and it really affected me. It was as simple as this, and we reflected in the film. There's an empty chair in front of you, and imagine Christ there sitting down. What would he say to you? Right? And you sit there and you meditate and you imagine Christ speaking to you, and if I may share, in my own experience of doing that exact same thing, what I received was that Jesus was saying, "Do not be afraid. I have planned all things for you." So for me, there was something that I hold on to whenever whenever there are things that happen in life that I'm not too sure about. I always remember that Jesus had told me, "Do not be afraid. I have planned all things for you." And so I wanted to bring that experience into the film, and in a context that, probably maybe Ignatius himself had it certainly would have come from him. and so I wanted to show that inception of the first time that that happened, that he would ask someone to do that and imagine Christ. And one of the really nice things is that there's an Ignatian principle, if I understand correctly, of letting the creator deal with the creature.
Yes.
Let God deal with the human, and don't try not to get in the way of him talking to, you know, and I wanted to kind of show that in a very nice visual and emotional way. You know, that scene was what we used to audition Andreas and the two actors in that scene. And I have to tell you, the first time they did that in Barcelona, in this empty room with just two chairs, they performed that. It was already amazing as a scene. It was already super touching. They had the exact chemistry that we wanted for that scene, and it's pretty much what you saw on film. That scene was pristine, and I think blessed from the start. And I felt like I feel like in many ways I had nothing to do with it. I just brought it there and had them perform it, and the audience, you know, again, not getting in the way. You know? Yeah.
Of course, for me, yung favorite scene ko was the court scene or scenes. Diba? Kasi it was building up to the climax. Ano? But the refrain of into the breach, at mga Jesuits din nagustuhan yun. Ano? They love that phrase. And of course, that's not from Ignatius. That's from, as you wrote it in the film, that's from the prophet Ezekiel, diba? Or the book, that book of Ezekiel. You know? Again, this court scene, how did you contemplate that scene?
So historically, Ignatius had gone through many different trials because he kept on being questioned in his methods by, you know, different authorities, church authorities, and so on. And so as a literary device, we just felt like let's put them and combine them as one trial, where the questions laid before Ignatius at the time and how he answered them, we could dramatize that and show how, at the same time, a summary of his methods, how he was teaching people, and also the objections of people who were unwilling to kind of consider this new way of, because he really brought in a new way of contemplation and teaching, and, you know, very alien to what people were used to back then. And so it became this battle between what is the new, what is traditional. Do we just keep our eyes, like, you know, just boxed in and just do the same thing that has been done through thousands of years, or do we bring in the experience of people now? Do we bring in the even back then it was the same question, and even today we're still arguing the same things. So it was really that we wanted to give Ignatius a chance to speak again of that question, you know, and to show, in particular, through the witnesses that came forward to defend Ignatius, to show how he had touched people's lives in very concrete ways, and had touched them, it inspired them to pursue God more. And I think in the end, you know, in many ways, that's the proof of the pudding, right? Na parang, if your life is able to inspire others to be better, what better proof that God is with you? You know?
Yeah. Okay, one last scene that I'd like to discuss with you about, the flagellation scene at the end.
Oh my goodness.
It's the most powerful, but at the same time, for some Jesuits, it's the most controversial. In fact, I don't know if I've told you that when we were in Rome, when we premiered the movie in Rome, I got word from Father Danny Wang. I asked them, so what's your feedback? It's great, except they told me, Father Danny Wang, Father Jojo Magaja, and Father Mark Raper, of course, who's our number one funder. So they all said, can you cut short the flagellation scene because it's so gory, But I fought for that scene because when I was watching it, sabi ko, it was very powerful, and if it had that impact on me, for young people who like watching gory movies, I'm sure that was not an issue. But again, can you tell us about that scene?
Well, okay. I was not immediately worried about too much of. Well, I think that the core of it was we wanted to show visually how Ignatius suffered. As I mentioned before, people suspect that he had gone through a major depression, and how he had climbed out of that hole is something we wanted to show. And it's really this whole story of feeling unworthy. They call it his scruples. Feeling like no matter what he did, he could never erase his sins. He could never deserve heaven. He could never face God because he was just not worthy. And that pain is something real. By all accounts, Ignatius really felt that really strongly, to the point of, again, almost wanting to hurl himself from a window, or wanting to end it all. And we wanted to show that. We wanted to really show that it is akin to a physical pain, this feeling of being unworthy, being like totally worthless. It's really that, I think, that we wanted to show. And how he found in his own spiritual development, his realization that it's not up to me. It's not up to me to be saved. I can never deserve God, but that doesn't matter because he's already decided to save me.
Yeah.
He loved me first.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the thing. So I wanted that pain to be real and manifest visually, so that the redemption will also mean something. Yeah. So it's that story, and also because again, like you said, it's cinema language now. It's very much within the realm. I mean, even the Passion of the Christ had a lot of that.
Yeah.
Way more than we did,
But I don't know if we can share this secret. But si Kathy, Kathy was saying that when you were filming that scene, when he was already flagellating himself, you wanted to stop at a certain point kasi parang masakit na. But then Kathy, who's observing or teaching the actors how to act, parang sabi niya, no, wait, he is achieving something here. And then
I am so happy that Kathy was there and serving as our in many ways associate director for the thing, because she everything I know about actors and how their process is, I learned from her, because she's a theater actor. She's the real actor. I come from a more technical background if you're gonna classify directors. And so she was the one who had a pulse on how the story was unfurling. And in this particular moment, she knew better than me that what Andreas was trying to do, because she knows the process.
Yeah.
And me, I am in many ways, if in my role as being the father of the set or captain of the ship, I cannot allow my crew to get hurt.
Yeah.
So my instinct was to no. If I see him bleed or whatever, I'm gonna hate myself, So I was already getting ready to yell cut. She literally had to hold me down and say, give him time. He knows he's not gonna hurt himself. He will know when to. And that was great, because he was just ramping himself up for that moment, and he gave us such an incredible performance. One take, never to be repeated ever. I would not ask him to bring himself back there anymore, and he would not be able to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing. I think Kathy saved the film in that moment, because it's just it's amazing what he did. He really went for it. I think he really, he's very method in many ways, Andreas, and he really wanted to put himself in that moment of wanting to destroy yourself because you feel unworthy. And he,
Just before the final questions, may nanonood sa ating mga Jesuit, sabi ni Father Karel San Juan, when I mentioned that about the naivety of doing this film, sabi niya, audacious is the word. And he added, when I presented the film in Rome during GC 36 congregation, I mentioned its audacity, which was a theme in the general congregation. So audacious daw, hindi naivete. So
I think, yeah.
yeah. So Paolo, of course, ang daming awards na natanggap nitong pelikula, and on its first year, di ba? People were saying, why can't the Philippine film industry make more films like this? It's quality, it's international, and so on and so forth. For you, what was the movie all about? Of course, the awards were important, but for you, how did this movie change or influence your life?
I am, as a personal thing, I think that it will go down as a wonderful adventure, and a journey that I took with so many wonderful people, and that I'm very, very proud of. But also, as a piece of film, I will be the last to say it's perfect. It's not. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of what the team was able to do. And I am proud and heartened by the fact that we get messages from individual audience members, people who've seen it and said they were touched by this scene.
Yeah.
I was having a hard time in my life, but this scene helped me get through it. Or my son is going through a hard time, and I shared this film with him, and it helped him understand what he's going through. And in particular, one parent said, as her daughter was going through, I think, a mental episode, her hardship and so on, and they were watching the film, and she pointed at the screen and she said, "Mama, they understand me. They understand what that is." So things like that, I feel like this is not the kind of movie that will get big accolades in terms of like, oh, major box office all around the world. I don't think it's that kind of film. I think it touches people one by one, the same way that Ignatius wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that multiplies. I think, again, this is Ignatius being the ultimate producer on our film.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to do. Yeah.
Well, the film will be shown again. It was shown Facebook pages of Jescom and radyo-katipunan, as well as YouTube pages. Last July 16, it will be shown again, free on the feast day of Ignatius on the 31st of July. So abangan nyo po yan. You can watch again and go through the same adventure that Paolo had doing this film. Thank you so much, Paolo.
Thank you, Father.
Maraming and of course, the Jesuits, thank you for doing this film.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was my honor. Absolutely my honor. Thank you so much.
Okay, salamat po. And yan po si Paolo, and we pray for him, for his family, for his work, his ministry. Hanggang sa susunod pong linggo, this has been the Jesuit Hour here at Radyo Katipunan. And this is Father Nono Alfonso. Goodbye. Have a happy lunch, everyone. Bye-bye. Paolo, thank you.
Thank you.
The Jesuit Hour. Get to know the Jesuits. Discover their spirituality, their history, their ministries. The Jesuit Hour. Anything Jesuit, everything Jesuit. The Jesuit Hour.